rights under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand.
Welcome to our listeners to another week of Let's Start Justice. Thank you so much for tuning in with the Jamaicans for Justice team. My name is Michael Jackson, Executive Director.
And I'm Jade Williams, the Policy and Advocacy Specialist.
How are you doing, Jade?
I'm going.
You're going?
Yeah.
I don't know, it's the third week of January and somehow it feels as if we've passed the first quarter.
Yeah.
My body's certainly in a rundown mode.
I mean, I guess it's just the human rights landscape that we're in right now. We have a lot of work to do.
What a statement. All right, thanks again, as I said, to our listeners. Just remember that the second half of the program, you can call in at 676-4996 or you can WhatsApp your comments at
239-7583.
All right, great. So, as usual, we're just going to be starting with a human rights recap of what happened in the previous week. And let me start by saying that it would be remiss of us not to mention the SSL saga that's happening in the country.
Yes.
And we won't get into it. It's not within our remit, but within the context of pensioners, especially the elderly folks. There was something about an 87-year-old woman and a family member who had invested. So it has implications for our most vulnerable and those who, unfortunately, they invested their last. Mm-hmm. And I hope that justice will be swift and persons will recoup whatever they would have lost during that particular investment scheme. Now, just to shift gears with some of the updates, for those who have been following the matter of environmental rights and climate justice issue in the country, and the bauxite mining happening in the St. Anne region, specifically in the areas of Gibraltar, St. Anne, and neighboring communities. A group of young attorneys, and I want to extend my congratulations to them, led by Melania Lane, for example, and I can't remember some of the other names, but I think attorneys on record include Michael Hilton and others. So, outside of the precautionary measures that they had filed with the IACHR, which was successful, the Supreme Court ruled recently to have an injunction to stop the Noranda Bauxite Company from continuing mining under the Special Mining License 173. So there were two other licenses, 165 and 172, but the court had indicated that given those mining processes, for lack of a better term, was nearing an end. Let's just focus on 173. So there is an injunction, and I think the matter is to be heard in court in November. So from now until November, Noranda can't do any mining under the Special Mining License SML 173. And that's certainly good news when you talk about respecting the fundamental right to a healthy environment for persons.
Absolutely, and I'm sure it will be a relief to those in those communities that have been severely negatively affected by the mining activity, that they will have some reprieve, some break from that kind of pollution that they've been experiencing.
Yes. And tied to that, JFJ, we have been providing some legal support to individuals. We haven't filed anything of this nature, but we have been providing some legal support to persons, community interventions, and on January 31st, via Zoom. You can check our social media pages later today. For our young attorneys, young activists who want to be involved, join us on January 31st for a session to learn more about environmental rights in the country and the legal landscape, so you can learn and see how best you can participate. To wrap things up quickly before Jade start looking at me side eyes, there were some other things that I want to provide an update around. So we remember that you have the Office of the Children's Advocate, the OCA report, with the unfortunate circumstances surrounding Carl Robansky and the Child Protection and Family Services Agency. Just by way of update, several media houses reported yesterday to indicate that the Public Services Commission, the PSC, will be making a recommendation for the Chief Executive Officer, Rosalie Gage Gray, to be terminated. The Permanent Secretary, however, had cautioned the media that she has received no official update from the PSC, but a meeting would have been done yesterday, and further updates will be provided from the media. We haven't heard anything as yet, so I'm just reporting what the media outlets would have said yesterday. But we are paying keen attention. But I want to say to the Ministry of Education and parliamentarians that the process and the due process for Mrs. Gage Gray must be followed. But if her circumstances are untenable, then certainly, and the public would have lost interest, confidence rather.
Yes,
then
absolutely.
you have to do what you have to do. Of course, respecting her right to due process. But outside of that, though, accountability must move beyond the CEO, and where others within the CPFSA may have acted untoward or may have violated several sections of the Child Care and Protection Act, then we hope, well, not hope, our advocacy will clearly demand that accountability will be extended beyond the CEO, but institutional accountability as well. Two other things I want to mention, Jade. There was a video circulating on social media, and it was sent to us on Instagram as well, of a young man purportedly being beaten at the Ocherius police station. We don't know if the video is a recent one or if it is a factual one. Yes. And it's something that we're going to be following up on later today. But the video showed a young man supposedly at the Ocherius police station being beaten, being called derogatory terms surrounding his sexual orientation. Jamaican, and we don't say gay men. We use a derogatory term that I can't say on air. And supposedly saying that the young man was living with HIV. And again, that is not the terminology because it was quite discriminatory. Mm-hmm. And we're saying to the Ministry of National Security, the JCF, to ensure that an investigation is undertaken. Because if this young man's rights were violated, if he was discriminated against and treated in any way, then we trust that the investigation will be quick, and where possible, this young man should see some reprieve from the state. So we just want to put that on record. And I think the last thing of note, Jade, is the circumstances around Mount Salem and a 3-year-old who was being beaten by teachers. And I think it brings home the conversation about corporal punishment and the lip service that our parliamentarians have been paying to this issue. So for those who are not aware, corporal punishment, which is beating, physically abusing our children, because some of us don't know the start of discipline versus abuse. So currently, under the Child Care and Protection Act, children in state care, it's banned from corporal punishment being enacted in state homes.
Yes, please.
Within the Early Childhood Act, corporal punishment is also banned for those at basic school and early childhood institutions. And though it is frowned upon in schools generally, it is not banned. No. The government again paying lip service to say that, we do not believe in corporal punishment, but we're urging parents not to do it. We're saying to the government, let's get on board, stop playing lip service with this issue, ban corporal punishment altogether. Utilize the National Parenting Commission to ensure that our parents are sensitized. We change the next generation so we know how to discipline. Put in the naughty corner, for example.
And what was more concerning to me about the report was that the victim children were autistic. They were on the spectrum. And so they had an inability even to communicate how they were being affected. One mother reported her child refusing to go into school, crying. She's not understanding why this is happening. So you can imagine how terrifying it was for them, not knowing why they're experiencing this kind of pain.
Yes. And the ECC, the Early Childhood Commission, I think they move swiftly with their investigation.
Yes.
And I hope... And they have done a remarkable job, I must say, in my estimation. Based on what we've seen, they went in, I think they're going to close the school if it has not already been closed.
Yes.
I hope there's no gap because it's a vulnerable group. So I think we have to applaud the state institutions when they do act in a quick manner. But I'm also happy that we had neighbors who sounded an alarm.
Yes.
Because, when the ECC goes to the various early childhood institutions to do their inspections, you can imagine that the teachers who are doing the beating, they won't be beating the children in front of the inspectors. Yes, so it's very difficult for them. But there was someone who sounded the alarm, a former teacher.
Yes.
So again, you just want to say to the public that you have a role to play in these things ending as a part of our culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, Mikkel, for our human rights issues of the week. I'm going to just quickly do our right of the day today, which is freedom from child labor. So the Child Care and Protection Act states that a child under the age of 13 should not be employed to perform any work. However, between the ages of 13 and 15, the child can perform light work. The child should not be employed in any work that is hazardous or interferes with that child's education, nor should the child be engaged in any work that may be harmful to their health, physical, spiritual, or social development. So, that is our right of the day. And we also have a trivia question this week. And it is, what age does criminal responsibility begin? So at what age can you become responsible for committing a crime? And you can respond to that via our social media pages, or you can send a WhatsApp message to 239-7583.
All right, great. So we're continuing the conversation, Jade, on the matter of sexual abuse, because when we looked at the OCA report, and one of the conversations we had with the children's advocate during a media interview was that somehow we become silent bystanders because there's a strong rape culture, if you will, in Jamaica, and the victim blaming.
Yes.
So one of the topic for today really is challenging those attitudes, perception, and the culture of sexual abuse in Jamaica. And we're going to be joined by DSP Jacqueline Dillon of the Community Safety and Security Branch. And I think DSP Dillon is also the head of the Domestic Violence Intervention Center. She can correct me if I'm wrong here.
Yeah, I think that's the
She
case.
is. And also Nadia McLaren, Acting Director of the Bureau of Gender Affairs. So we're going to take the break, and then on the other side of the break, we do our little introduction, and then we get straight into it.
The people's champion. Our mission is love. Our vision is love. Jamaicans for justice. The people's champion.
Out of many, we are one. One Jamaica on the Bridge 99 FM.
Imagine your advertising dollar reaching your Caribbean and diaspora target beyond borders in a single rotation. It happens only on the Bridge. Call now to advertise 876-669-5000.
Hi everyone, this is Shaggy, and I'm here to invite you all to the Island Music Conference taking place February 8th through to the 12th. It's very important for you guys to come and really just enjoy the whole festivity.
IMC. If you love the music, you'll be there. February 8th through 12th. Over 15 panel discussions, workshops, showcases, and get Caribbean items at the All Day Market at the Pegasus every day. Register now at early bird rates. IslandMusicConference.com. DM at Island Music Conference. See you there.
Rights we should all know.
If any member of the security force hits you, abuses you, refuses to give you your phone call, or otherwise violates your rights, complain to the police on duty, the JP who visits the lockup, the public defender, the Inspectorate of Constabulary, or the police at the station. With every right, there is a responsibility.
Brought to you by the Office of the Public Defender.
Tune in, log on and download the Bridge 99 FM app on your mobile device or tablet from the Google Play Store or Apple App Store. That's the Bridge 99 FM, all one word, in the Google Play Store and Apple App Store. The Bridge 99 FM, Caribbean vibes amplified. Download now.
One love, one art, one Jamaica. On the Bridge 99 FM.
The people's champion. Our mission is love. Our vision is love. Jamaicans for justice. The people's champion.
Welcome back to Let's Start Justice. We're focusing on challenging those attitudes, perception, and the culture of sexual abuse and rape in the country. And we're going to be joined by DSP Jacqueline Delon, Community Safety and Security Branch, and Miss Nadia McLaren of the Bureau of Gender Affairs. But before we get into it, I think when you look at the age of sexual debut in the country, Jade, we have our young girls as early as age 12 having sexual intercourse for the first time. Boys, boys 12, girls 13. And again, that is the average age, because having worked in the HIV sector, having done school interventions, we've seen our children at primary school as young as age 8 years old having sex. And when you look at the age of those who they are having sex with, you see the exploitation coming in. You see sexual grooming happening. And it's something that's disheartening, I think, when you look at our statistics with the rape. And even within the high school setting, for example. So I don't know. But anyway.
Anecdotally, I remember I attended an all-girls school. And part of our discussion, you'd have the side of people who are judging the other girls who are in relationships, which at the time, being a teenager, I wasn't so sure as to what was wrong with it. But you'd have a 14-year-old girl and she's in a relationship with the taxi driver that takes her to school, who is a 35-year-old man.
And you call her bad.
Yeah. And it's not, and what fuels the culture really, it's not the students alone that have this opinion. You'll hear your teachers saying the same thing, that, she's force-ripe.
Yes. So, DSP Delon, welcome to Let's Start Justice.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I hope you're hearing me.
Yes, we're hearing you clearly. Do we have Miss McLaren on, Karan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, good afternoon, Miss Nadia McLaren of Bureau of Gender Affairs. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Happy New Year to you both. DSP, let me start with you. What are some of the misconceptions or the things that you have heard in terms of what may fuel the rape or sexual abuse culture in Jamaica? You heard Jade, for example, mentioning we label the young girls as bad. It's their fault. What else have you heard based on where you are at?
I think that based on what we have seen and our own experiences, when it comes down to sexual abuse of female, there's always this feeling that men are entitled to what the women have. And so I tend to use the saying that goes like this, that if it is that God wanted you to have what I have, then, or if the Lord wanted you to think that it belongs to you, then you would have gotten it.
Yes.
You would have had both. The fact of the matter is, in a culture, our own culture and socialization comes off where women, it is felt from day one that the women ought to be submissive to the men in the form that if I want something from you, which is what you care that I want all the time, then you're entitled to give it up. And because of that, even for the young ladies who are in household, you find that that is something that pass on right down the line. That is one of the concerns that we have. And when we talk about stepfathers and fathers, sexually assaulting or abusing their girls, because many of them feel that, if I go with a very young girl, then my lifespan will be longer, right? And I have to coin my words properly because I'm on air, and there are some things that I'm not allowed to say.
Yes.
But male privilege is one of the major issues around sexual assault, both in the homes and communities.
And as you mentioned that one about being with the young girls, working within the HIV sector before, one of the things we heard was that if I have sex with a virgin, I won't contract HIV, or it will actually cure HIV.
Yes.
So, that's one of the misconceptions. Miss McLaren, from your end, within the Bureau of Gender Affairs, what are some of the things that you've come across?
So, for us, you're hearing me clearly?
Yes.
Okay, so hi everyone. I am the acting director for the community liaison unit at the Bureau of Gender Affairs. So that means I interface a lot with community people and work on the ground. So for us, what we see is the culture. Our culture normalizes violence, sexual violence, and what it means to be a female versus what it means to be a male, and the norms that come along with that. So, me being a woman in Jamaica, what does that mean? What are my cultural expectations? Similarly, what does it mean to be a man? So I'm a man. I'm rough, I'm tough, I'm entitled, that's how we grow them. So there's this power imbalance that's there between males and females. Women are supposed to be sweet and nice and charming. So with that culture, you see the power imbalances and abuse. Abuse is also normalized in our society to say that, from dead, look rape and rape from dead, things like that.
Yes.
So we will see those things at the community level. At certain communities as well, it is normalized for things like incest. Accepted in these communities because of lack of exposure. If the community understands that, okay, this is the lived reality of the people in the community, persons will accept it. So that is how places like the Bureau of Gender Affairs and the JCF comes in to change these cultural understandings from the persons who are there who perpetuate such violence that we normalize as a society of what a male is supposed to be, what a female is supposed to be, how a woman is supposed to behave or not to behave, or how a man is supposed to behave and not to behave. So you see those things perpetuating violence.
As you talk about those perceptions, I think, and we spoke about the early sexual debut of children, one thing that I often hear from young boys when they discuss their first sexual experience, which with my understanding now, it's clearly an assault that you would have encountered. But the young man perceives this to be a good thing.
Or the parents say, at least I know you're not gay.
Yes, so they value the fact that they've been assaulted.
Yes.
I mean, how do we address that kind of understanding of what is happening to you? Because I think that also pushes into the way how they treat their sexual relationships in the future. And I'm asking that to Miss McLaren.
So, there's data from the Women's Health Survey. A lot of persons can read and get that information, where it was said that most of Jamaican girls, their first sexual experience was before the age of 15. I'm looking at this data right now because, with data, we can form better policies and better interventions.
Yes. So
it said almost 1/5 of Jamaican women reported being sexually abused as a child. And he stated that many Jamaican children are exposed to sex and sexual abuse at an early age. What was this question specifically? Let me address that.
Yes, I was just asking how we can challenge their perception that some of these abusive behaviors are good. Yeah.
Well, I think regarding boys in
particular, yes.
Right. So, education. Education is very, very, very important to break some of our cultural stereotypes and cultural understanding of what it means to be a male or a female. Because as a boy, boys are supposed to be galley, supposed to get a girl. And if he can't get a girl in front of his friends, he will look as a weak man. But we're not teaching our boys that respect. respect a girl, respect another boy. You don't have to be forceful. So the different agents of socialization, which is our school, our church, our peer, they need to be re-socialized to understand that respect goes much further and we need to respect each other. So those are one way in which, the most important way, I think, that we can break some of these stereotypes is to improve on the knowledge that we have had as a society that perpetuates violence towards our children and violence towards adults in general.
Thank you. You know, there is a misconception that our communications officer gave us that says if a man pays the bills, he has the right to sexual relations with any member of the household. And the proverb that he used, man no fat no fowl for mongoose. And I think if we look at that Cartel song a couple years ago about taking stuff if you take stuff from men. I can't say what the language was in that song, but I think we can recall.
Yes, we all recall.
So over to you, DSP Dylan. Working within the communities, do you see some of these misconceptions happening? And, well, you mentioned some of them earlier, but what sort of public education, community interventions would your branch and, for example, the domestic violence intervention centers undertake in the communities to challenge some of these things?
All right, so we have seen the same thing. Again, culture and socialization shape how our men behave and what they think, how we nurture our boys in the home and what we tell them also contributes to that. So the community safety and security branch, we have been doing a number of pop-ups in communities. We have been doing a lot of community engagement. We have been speaking with residents about domestic violence in a bid to change the concept that of what we have out there as it relates to our boys. I hope you're hearing me. Not sure if you're hearing me.
Heard. There was a little delay, it seems, with the internet.
Are you hearing me?
We're going to take the break now, and then when we return, we continue with your response.
The people's champion. Our mission is love. Our vision is love. Jamaicans, for justice. The people's champion.
Start your morning with us. Take your stress away.
We still a do it big, big, big.
KFC still a do it big. KFC Big Deal. The time by KFC Big Deal is
1:30.
I put it down on the west.
Hold up, wait a minute.
6.
On the bridge?
Every Tuesday at 10 p.m.
We talk about the forbidden, the inevitable, the truth. Nothing is untouched. It's live with me, dancehall queen Carlene.
Download the Bridge app, be on the 99, and tune in this Tuesday after dark.
The conversation is intellectual and maybe tantric, but always entertaining as we hear from the expert and you.
SOD, this Tuesday at 10 p.m.
Yeah, this is Angie from Gardentown. In the square, right at Miss Lou's statue. Come check out Kentucky Drinking Salon with the top shelf liquor them. See them like how you see the bridge, 99 FM to the world.
You ever hungry and all you want is a bowl of some rich Jamaican soup? Your pot start bubble, you take off the cover and the flavor just lick you.
What a lovely situation.
Yeah man, with Caribbean Dream Soup Mix, we make sure you get the authentic Jamaican flavor. Chicken noodle, cock soup, pumpkin, and the new flavors, fish, vegetable, and ram goat. Caribbean Dream Soup Mix, flavor you want, flavor you get. Distributed by Amalgamated Distributors Limited.
Lord Keisha, you hear about the little girl we get shot in the community last week?
What you mean?
I'm here say things are gonna get even crazy, I know, cause them boy they smuggling some new gun the other day.
If me could have said something without bad man hear about me name, I would have talked with me know a long time, you know. Cause for them foolishness always come back for hurt the innocent people in the community.
But you know, say, them have one program where you can actually give information to the police secretly, you know. Customs join up with Crime Stop and start one campaign named Tell Us. So people can give tips and nobody nothing know say them. Them all give out money if the reward lead to an arrest or them can find the gun them.
Boy, honestly, me kind of afraid, you know. But things can't continue, so. Me ready to tell them when me know.
You're right. We have to put a stop to it.
The Jamaica Customs Agency wants you to tell us what you know. Call Crime Stop at 311 to share information about illegal guns and other contraband coming through our borders. The Jamaica Customs Agency. Country above self.
KFC, we still do it big, big, big. Work hard every day with determination. Anything you set your mind to, you do it big. No underestimate your potential. You are a real big deal and you must win. SPIC in your area. KFC with the taste and the flavor. We are big deals, so adapt we are hard and we do big things with no
KFC still are doing it big. KFC Big D. Enjoy 3 pieces of delicious chicken, fries, and a Pepsi. Because big dreamers need a big deal.
The Bridge 99 FM, keeping the Caribbean connected.
The people's champion. Our mission is love. Our vision is love. Jamaicans, our justice. The people's champion.
Welcome back to Let's Start Justice. Remember, we're going to be taking your call shortly, and you can call the line at 676-4996.
Or you can leave your comments in WhatsApp at 2397583.
And we're monitoring your comments also on our YouTube platform and Instagram, and I think Twitter as well. I want to say welcome to Miss McLaren. She is now with us in studio. So thank you so much. But back to you, DSP Delan. You were outlining to us some of the efforts that is being done through the Community Safety and Security Branch within the communities and the efforts that are being undertaken to challenge some of these misconceptions that we have around sexual abuse.
Right. So the Community Safety and Security Branch is that arm of the JCF that looks at community engagement so that we can educate our communities on initiatives around crime prevention. One of the things that we have been doing since last year, 2022, is that we have ramped up our pop-ups. What we do is just show up at a venue, talk to people. We use music, so we use a JCF band. We get our stakeholders, and I'm happy to say Happy New Year to Ms. McLaren, because the Bureau of Gender Affairs and the Community Safety and Security Branch Domestic Violence Intervention Unit have been working very closely to look at some of the issues that we find in communities. That because in every instance, or almost every instance of domestic violence, there's sexual abuse. And so the message is always the same. The information you get out of the community is always the same. So we use our pop-ups, which is one of the vehicles that we use.
And by the way, the JCF officers talented, you know. I have to say, yes, I've watched some of them online.
And so that is one of the things that we use. And we find that because music is so catchy in communities, especially in the ones that are not the very affluent like uptown, you'll find that people will more gravitate towards music. If we want to get the message to the youth listen to lyrics, music. So we have to get there. So that is one of the methods. The other way is that we have been doing a number of widely publicized meetings where we go and we knock on people's door and we talk to them about these issues of domestic violence. We talk about how sexual abuse is connected to domestic violence and how crime itself. So whatever we do is violence prevention. So it's a violence prevention campaign. We engage our neighborhood watch groups, our police youth club groups. So within the community safety and security branch, we have the neighborhood watch, we have the police youth club movement, we have the safe schools. So we go in the schools and we go talk to some of the parents about, because let me tell you, we were forced to really rock back in our chair, because when we look at the incidents of sexual abuse during COVID, prior to COVID, school and some other institutions were safe even for kids.
Yes.
The fact that they are in the household now, they don't have anywhere to go. You find that these incidents have now come up to the fore, and it's the same thing with domestic violence. People had an avenue for running away. When COVID came, the avenues locked down because we were all under shutdown mode. And so we had to find a way of getting to communities and getting to people. And we had to ramp up our walkthroughs where we go in and we talk to people right there in their own homes. We don't ask them to come to a station. We start to put out a lot of messages on social media. Because like what Ms. McLaren says, the only way you can reduce some of these incidents is through education.
Yes. Yes. Ms. McLaren, from your end at the Bureau of Gender Affairs, DSP spoke extensively at the community level approaches, but when we look at the data, even within some of the cases that we get at JFJ, and we know this, most of the instances of sexual abuse, it happens within the homes and the neighbor who's very close to us, those who we trust. What is the approach from the Bureau of Gender Affairs to address that?
So thank you for asking me this question, and I want to say now that I'm in studio, big ups to JFJ for the job that they have been doing with helping persons, because society have different levels of persons. Not everybody can afford justice. So JFJ's initiative to bring justice on the radio for persons to be aware and get informed of what is available for them is a very good initiative. So congratulations on that, and keep up the good work. First of all, most persons, we are aware that they may not know what the Bureau of Gender Affairs does and who we are, where we're located and what we do. So I want to start off by telling persons a little bit more about the Bureau of Gender Affairs. We are within the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, and we are the national machinery that is responsible for eliminating or reducing instances of gender-based violence. Gender-based violence is an umbrella term that speaks to any form of violence against male or female against their will. So sexual abuse is one such form of gender-based violence. And we address gender-based violence in a multi-pronged approach, because there is no way to address gender-based violence in one way.
Yes.
Given the dimensions, the multiple facets of gender-based violence, there is schools, there is church, there is educational facilities, there's the workplace, there is violence on the road. So the Bureau has different departments that reaches out to different persons, but we realize that persons do not know what is made available to them. So the Bureau of Gender Affairs, we have our community liaison unit. We work closely with persons in the community. We work closely with the Citizen Safety and Security Branch, with the community walkthroughs, the pop-ups. They have their domestic violence intervention centers. Persons should know about that too. So when reporting to the police, which is their first line of response, first line responders, they would go to the domestic violence intervention centers. That's a very good initiative. They are in almost every parish. So persons would complain that when they go to the police, they don't get a good interface. But we work with the domestic violence intervention centers, DVI Care Center for short, with the training with the police officers for them to have a better understanding on what domestic violence is, with the training with our other first line responders, such as our guidance counselors, deans of disciplines, nurses, doctors, teachers, everybody that would, provide some safe haven. We work with the community citizens groups within various parishes. We have a gender-based violence referral program where we work with other agencies that persons may not know about too. There is SISOCA, which is the Center for Investigations of Sexual Offenses. So they deal specifically with sexual abuse.
Yes.
Right. So if persons experience any forms of sexual abuse, they would go to SISOCA. Other forms of gender-based violence, such as domestic violence, the Bureau is responsible for that.
And we also have an MOU with the Bureau that we had signed a couple of years ago.
Yeah, we do.
So we need to ensure that we stick to it.
We have to stick to it. So also, persons should know that we have a helpline. So if persons are experiencing gender-based violence, you do not have to suffer in silence. Those helplines, they can text it, WhatsApp it, please call me, drop call. And there are trained social workers who are behind those phone lines that will help you. I will provide the numbers to you now. For females, it's 553-0372. And for males, it's 553-0387. And you don't have to think about, who will know my business. It's confidential and it is a safe space. So if you know anyone or know of anyone who's experienced gender-based violence and you may not know how to intervene, you can call the Bureau and also tell them. And we will work out how we will intervene with that person. Or if you yourself is experiencing gender-based violence. And there's also a male helpline.
Oh, that's good. I want us to pick up with some of those things, Miss McLean, but I know Jade has a question for DSP before we have to let her go. But since you're in studio, then we will pick up.
No problem.
Yes, DSP, I heard you talk about the domestic violence intervention centers. And for our audience, if you could explain what the role of those centers are, and if you are in need of the center, how can you reach out and make that need known?
Okay. So the Domestic Violence Intervention Center, DVI Care for short. So we're talking about domestic violence, and we talk about the 5 pillars of domestic violence, the 5 pillars of intervention. So we talk about intervention, we talk about counseling, because what we do, we are not the counselors, but we have counselors who work with the Domestic Violence Intervention Center. So if somebody needs help, all they need to do is call the number, send an email, or call my phone or WhatsApp me, I need help, and I put them on to a DVI Care Center. Because the DVI Care Center are really safe spaces for persons who are experiencing domestic violence, whether it is intimate partner violence or family violence. Because oftentimes we pay attention to intimate part, but we don't look at the family part of it. Where the family part right now is creating a lot of problems for us in Jamaica. So the DVI Care Center, when persons go there, they speak to a center manager who will listen to them, have an interview, speak to the survivor to find out what it is that you actually want. Do you want the matter to go to court, or do you want counseling? Tell us what you want, because we do the survivor-centered approach. So we don't make the decisions for them. So we tell them all the avenues that are there for them. And if somebody say, I want to go to court to get a protection order, we assist them in the process of going to court to get a protection and or occupation order. If it is they say, oh, I want to go, this is so bad, I need to get into a shelter, then this is where now we make contact with the Bureau. We have a discussion, and then we put that person onto them so that they can decide if this person fits the bill to get into a shelter, knowing that the spaces are really, really limited. If that is not, then we look at, can we go through a phase of counseling? Because everybody who goes through incidents of domestic violence oftentimes are traumatized. So we can't, be it a matter that goes to the court or otherwise, we ensure that that person gets the help, the intervention through counseling, assistance in getting the matter to the court, or assistance in getting them into a shelter once that is required. So that is really what the DVI Care Center does. Because a lot of people, it's separate and apart from the guard room. It's an area that offers confidentiality, which is critical to our operation. When somebody go there, they must not think that somebody else will tell the business outside because they are the only one that is in there. So that is what the DV Center do. I can share the number.
Yes, please do. And
they they can get in touch with me, and I will connect them to a DVI care center. So the number is 224-4274. That's 224-4274.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, DSP. And I hope we can keep in touch with strengthening our partnerships with those community interventions in particular. All right. We appreciate you stopping by.
You're welcome anytime, and I hope that we can forge that partnership again with a MOU like what you did with BJ, so that we know that we have Jamaicans for Justice on board to assist some of our survivors who really, really need the help and don't have the funding to do so.
Absolutely. All right, so we take the break and then we return with Miss McLaren and your calls.
The people's champion. Our mission is love. Our vision is love. Jamaicans for justice. The people's champion.
Don't watch no face. Just tune in to the Bridge 99 FM. That's right there.
Imagine your advertising dollar reaching your Caribbean and diaspora target beyond borders in a single rotation. It happens only on the Bridge. Call now to advertise 876-669-5000.
Hi, I'm Ronald Thwaites, and I'm the host of The Public Eye and The Open Mind on the Bridge 99 and Irie Jam in the tri-state area. This program will tell you the truth about life backyard. Fair, open talk. No gossip, no slander. We want to listen to your concerns. Also want to help you with your problems in JA. We at The Bridge rate you and affirm our oneness as citizens of this blessed land we love. So join us now on Wednesdays on The Bridge, crossing the waters, linking Jamaicans and Jamaican lovers everywhere.
Island Music Conference, February 8th through 12th, 23, Kingston, Jamaica, for the Caribbean. Over 15 music panel discussions, showcases, poetry, live bands, style show. There's just so much. Learn contracts, talk to the DSPs, talk to the record companies, talk to top attorneys, and get Caribbean items at the all-day market at the Pegasus. Register now at early bird rates. IslandMusicConference.com. DM at Island Music Conference.
Lord Keisha, you hear about the little girl we get shot in the community last week?
What do you mean?
I'm here say things are going to get even crazy, I know, cause them boy they smuggling some new gun the other day.
If me could have said something without bad man hear about my name, I would have talked with me know a long time, you know. Cause for them foolishness always come back for hurt the innocent people in the community.
But you know, say, them have one program where you can actually give information to the police secretly, you know. Customs join up with Crime Stop and start one campaign named Tell Us. So people can give tips and nobody nothing know say them. Them all give out money if the reward lead to an arrest or them can find the gun them.
Boy, honestly, me kind of afraid, you know. But things can't continue, so. Me ready to tell them when me know.
You're right. We have to put a stop to it.
The Jamaica Customs Agency wants you to tell us what you know. Call Crime Stop at 311 to share information about illegal guns and other contraband coming through our borders. The Jamaica Customs Agency, country above self.
Black Bridge to the George Washington Bridge. From the top of the Empire State Building to the Blue Mountain Peak. From the Grill Point to Morant Point to Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens, Manhattan, New York City.
The people's champion. Our mission is love. Our vision is love. Jamaicans for justice. The people's champion.
Hi, welcome back to Let's Start Justice. We have a caller. What's the name?
Hello, my name is Ronaldo.
Hi, Ronaldo. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for calling. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest problems we have in Jamaica is that sometimes we downplay very serious issues, and this is one of them, because just culturally we've gotten accustomed to just behaving in certain ways that are indecent. So things like catcalling, for example, are very normalized in our society, and that's like the mild end, right? So at the very extreme, you have situations where people may actually get very physically abusive, and instead of that being viewed as something that is not desirable, the alternative is done, and it's like, oh, you need to respond to that violence with aggression of yourself to show that you can defend yourself.
Yes.
So I think that kind of culture and subculture is something that we need to work on eliminating and reducing.
Absolutely.
And,
yes.
Yeah, in response to your question, I think the service that we really need to look at are the psychological support services that we give to like children and young people.
Yes.
I mean, everyone in general, but especially to young people, because sometimes, like,
you're talking young people who have been victims of sexual abuse?
So I actually think it's important for these to be generally available.
Okay.
Because those victims might not be in a position where they can like make themselves available to a specialist. But of course, they would also be included in these kinds of services. So yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Ronaldo, for your call.
No problem.
And just for the listeners, Ronaldo is referring to our public view question, which was, which service, in your opinion, is most in need of improvement for meeting the needs of victims of sexual assault?
And just to say, the language of victims, it's a technical term that healthcare workers would use, legal practitioners, and for those who immediately suffer through an abuse.
Yes.
But we use the language of survivors for those who have gone through a journey of dealing with the abuse that they would have undergone or experienced, rather.
Just before I get back to Miss McLaren, I just want to give another public view comment, which was one of the things we could improve was recording the details of assault, like when victims are giving their testimony, recording the details more intensely, and also to be more forthright with physical examinations of victims. So like rape kits, and ensuring that those are properly processed and that the evidence is held in an appropriate way so that it is useful in the future.
And that was a challenge we found when we were doing our own reports last year, that the rape kits weren't being processed in a timely manner. Ms. McLaren, you mentioned something earlier that I wanted to pick up, that men as victims and we provide support. So we know that men can be both victims and perpetrators. Just in a minute or less, can you say what the Bureau of Gender Affairs does to address that particular issue, men as victims and perpetrators?
Thanks for that question. So the Bureau has, we are guided by our National Strategic Action Plan to eliminate gender-based violence. And under that plan, we look on the victims, the survivors, the bystanders, and also the perpetrators. So through that, we have our Refocus Perpetrator program. Because men who perpetuate violence, what are we going to do with them? Just arrest them without rehabilitation? They are fathers, they are brothers, they are teachers, they are our neighbors. So through that program, we offer rehabilitation, training, counseling in order to have behavioral change from them perpetuating gender-based violence. We also have our special service division that focuses on male issues.
Yes.
So through that division now, men who are perpetrators or victims of gender-based violence, they can get support. We have our mentorship program, Mentor Me 2020, where we focus on at-risk youths in mentoring them, pairing them with men who can be positive influences in their life.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah, and we look on the data that shows that we do have an issue of fathering and fatherlessness in Jamaica. So we have our Young Fathers program where we have partnered with the Women's Center of Jamaica to offer parental guidance, fathering guidance to the young fathers who would have had children with girls at the Women's Center, and helping them to become better fathers, getting jobs, skilled training.
Well, we're running out of time, but I want to ask you lastly, the shelter.
Right.
How can we access who fits the criteria for access?
Right. So that's very important. One person's always asks, why is the shelter not public information? And we can say the shelter has to remain confidential for the issues of safety. So we currently have 3 shelters that are state-owned operational shelters by the government of Jamaica. And we have an intake process where persons have to meet these intake criteria to have access to the shelter. And if they do not meet that criteria, we have a full suite of services that we would offer to these women and their children who have experienced gender-based violence, because not everyone wants to go through a whole months of rehabilitation, because once you're admitted to the shelter, it's a rehabilitation holistic process where you and your child or children is taken to a safe space, and we assess you, offer counseling, rehabilitation, training, replacement from where you were, take you out of that abusive situation.
And what's the number?
The numbers to call the shelter?
Yes.
The numbers that I had given before.
Oh, it's the same. Okay,
right, so it's the same numbers. I can repeat them for you, for females, because they are the helpline. We have a gender-based violence unit, helpline
so 15
unit.
seconds or less, the numbers.
553-0372, 553-0387.
All right, over to you, Jane.
Yes, so I'm hearing from our producers that they are going to give us a little bit of room so we can take our second caller.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
great.
so who are we on with?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Davian.
Hi, Davian.
Nice to be on this platform. So I've been listening to the discussion so far about sexual violence, sexual assault, and what we can be able to address. So on the top of my head, everything that has been discussed is really a social issue. And everything comes back to society and how we're cultured. From growing up, we have been taught a lot of dangerous and toxic behaviors, especially as males. Females too, because of course, based on your environment and how you're grown, of course, you're going to be taught certain things. And most times, it's bad. And as time goes by and you're growing up, you go to school, you see your classmates doing things that you were also taught as well, so you thought it's going to be the norm. So as you get older, you become adults, then what you realize was the norm isn't really the norm. And to be honest, it's a long journey to correcting it. So on the basis of sexual violence, boys especially, we have been taught a lot of bad things, especially how to treat women. You know, thankfully, because I was growing in like a all-woman household, so everybody in there from auntie, grandmother, everybody.
So you grew up good, Davian.
Well, differently to say the least, because my mother was like a very strict mother, and as a single parent mother, who just teach me certain principles and basic things that, and then because I grown up, I was quite self-aware from my young age, to be honest. So I was just very aware of certain things. I can't say the same thing for other people too, because again, it's really based on how you're grown and how you're cultured and how you're molded, which will eventually result in how good or bad you are putting things out there into society. So when it comes back to sexual assault, it comes back to that. And sure, we can say, tell our girls to do this, don't be in toxic relationships, don't do this, don't do that. But also we have to teach our men too, how to be responsible and to be accountable for their actions.
Yes.
You know?
That's a good point.
It all comes back to accountability and responsibility. And sure, we can blame the parents through and through, but we also have to blame ourselves too, because no matter how older we get, we can't always blame our parents for how we were raised. We have to eventually unlearn things and relearn things.
But you touched on something, Davian, in terms of what you call it, primary socialization,
yes.
parents, those within our family setting. And there are a couple of things that you said I want to just emphasize. Self-awareness, teaching our children respect. The matter of consent is something that can't be understated, and the importance of that to both our young boys and our young girls. And I think when we look at other social institutions, and Ms. McLaren mentioned some of them, the service providers within the educational setting.
Yes.
There's a comment on YouTube I want Jay to touch on because it speaks to the matter of religious institutions. So.
True.
Yes. So Jay, just read that comment for me.
Yes, it's a series of comments actually. I believe the commenter is Denise Buchanan, and she's talking about firstly the lack of comprehensive sexuality education in schools, whereas children are not given a positive exposure to sexual activity, and that might perpetuate that abuse. But then she also talks about how the church can be complicit in the cover-up or the denial of these issues of sexual abuse, particularly in the environments where the church is involved. And then she spoke to something that we've spoken about extensively with all our guests, even our callers would have mentioned it, and that's the victim blaming, where the victim is made to be responsible for the abuse that they have endured and therefore are not worthy of further protection.
So Davian, any last word before we thank you for your call?
I want to touch on the comprehensive sexual education. So
I'm giving you less than a minute, all right?
All right. So in the advocacy space, I've learned a lot of things about CSE. And one of the things I realized is we have made a lot of, we love to sugarcoat things, we love to make things taboo, when one of the best ways to correct or change the culture of sexual assault is to not make things so taboo and to be unfiltered and real about the real life situation.
You mean like using the language of Teely and so on?
I mean, yes. I mean, if we have to go that further, we might have to go that further because, I mean, it's real life situations. You can't sugarcoat violence between a couple, regardless of sexual orientation or the situation. Like, you can't sugarcoat those things because it's real life situations.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Davian. We got a little leeway, so we'll be on air with you for another 2 minutes max. Ms. McLaren, you wanted to say something quickly?
He made a valid point about consent. But when your culture don't teach you things like consent, we take for granted the differences in parenting. I may be parented one way, which is the most important form of socialization, but my friend next door is parented another way. So I might look on you like, oh, you don't know this. When he spoke about consent, a song came to mind that permeates throughout everything. The Cartel song that says, "Me know say don't come on me yard for watch TV." So when a girl or a boy come over, the cultural understanding, or even when you go on a date, the cultural understanding say, it's an exchange. You come on me yard, you come for something. So our cultural understanding.
You buy me $5,000 dinner and automatically I owe you something at the end of
bring
that
you on a
$5,000
date.
meal.
You owe me your body and sexual exchange. So we no court, we no respect, we don't love each other, and we don't give consent. So we have to teach those things in the homes, at schools, at churches, and with our peers. So our agents of socialization have to teach and understand these valuable characters.
All right. Thank you so much. Jade, you had the trivia?
Yes, I do have the winner. It is Kamala B. And the answer to the question, which is what is the age of criminal responsibility, is 12 years old.
Yes. I tell my son all the time.
Yes. So Kamala or producer will be reaching out to you with your prize. Thank you so much for joining us this week on Let's Talk Justice. I've been Jade Williams, policy and advocacy specialist.
You've been okay. Michael Jackson, executive director. And thank you so much to the Bridge 99 team for giving us the extra 5 minutes. We appreciate it. And thanks to Karen Brown, our communications officer.
Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Out of many, we are one in Jamaica. Make it a better place for the boys and girls. Created equal by the creator. for equal rights and opportunities. No to unlawful detention and police brutalization. Class, gender, race or religion. We not tolerate discrimination.
To join the fight against injustice, contact us at 755-4524 or JamaicансForJustice.org.
The people's champion.
Roll call! Red Hills Road, White Plains Road, Crossroads, Jamaica Avenue, Constant Spring, Flatbush Avenue. Wherever you are, the only place that keeps you connected to yacht and foreign is the Bridge 99 FM to the world.
Chasing purpose is a journey of self-love, self-development,